everyone, welcome to the 2006 Porsche 987 Cayman S. This car sounds absolutely brilliant, as you may be able to tell, but nevertheless, let's have another listen. Right off the bat, this car has one of the, if not the single-handedly most satisfying induction notes that I've ever heard in my life. The flat six on this car is absolutely glorious. It just begs you to dig your foot into the throttle pedal and just drive the hell out of this thing. It is such a satisfying sound, and in many regards it actually reminds me, if you guys have seen the E46 M3 review that I did on my channel, it reminds me a lot of that. Now that specific E46, if any of you are BMW guys, which I'm sure many of you are that are watching, that S54 had velocity stacks on it, so it had a really satisfying induction sound to it whenever you would get on the gas pedal, and so does this car. This Cayman S is a 2006 model, as I stated previously. It is the S variant of the Cayman, so it features a 3.4 liter flat six engine with about 295 horsepower and about 252 pound-feet of torque, so very healthy. Sorry, it's just so addicting to hit that gas pedal. Very stout performance figures for a car of this size, and given the fact that this Cayman S has a curb weight of a little under 3,000 pounds, it definitely moves. It is not a slow car by any means. Yeah, this thing gets up to speed. Wow, what a wonderful car. As you guys might be able to tell, so far, I really enjoy the driving characteristics of this vehicle. It has such amazing steering feedback. Again, we have a hydraulic rack from Porsche with this generation of the Cayman. You get tons of direct feedback, direct, precise steering responsiveness every time you move the steering wheel, and the front end just wants to turn in. Of course, this car has a very balanced chassis, given the fact that it is that ideal engine layout of the mid-engine flat six sitting right behind us. Again, we have that multi-link rear suspension setup with the McPherson struts up front, and it's just such a balanced and fun to drive vehicle. This car is really dialed in, and I can't believe from factory how amazing this car is. This is my first time driving a Cayman S, and now I totally understand the appeal behind it. The manual gearbox is precise. This Cayman S actually has a short throw shifter kit into it that's aftermarket. It also has an aftermarket set of air intakes as well for that flat six, which provide even more induction noise. And it also has a valved exhaust system, which definitely helps it to sound amazing. It almost sounds like a mini GT3, dare I say it, for all you GT3 guys that may be watching this video. And they actually have this nice little ting sound that they make every time you put the car into a different gear, and it almost, in that sense, reminds me of a gated shifter just a little bit. I'm not sure how many of you saw my previous review, which was of a 2001 Boxster S. And this car in many regards builds on that platform. Obviously the Cayman and Boxster chassis, the powertrain, the drivetrain components, they're all shared. Obviously the Boxster is the Roadster variant and the Cayman is the coupe. It has plenty of power whenever you dig into the gas pedal. Again, it's not the fastest car in the world, but again, that's not what this car is about. It's about balance, it's about playfulness in the chassis, good handling, precise steering, and a wonderful transmission to wrap everything together. And you totally get that with this package. This is a really nice car, and given the used market values of these 987 generation Cayman S's, you can get a lot of car for the money. We're looking at about $20,000 to $25,000 for a relatively clean Cayman S, and that's a lot of car for the money. It's a lot of bang for the buck, especially just taking this car through some beautiful San Diego back roads. It's an absolute joy to just rip around, and the handling feels like it's on rails. I mean, you can really throw this thing into some corners with confidence, and you're never going to feel like the car is going to step out on you. The flat six provides a very linear power band. It's very progressive. There is no torque spike. There is no major torque shove unless if you floor the car in first gear. And everything is just very precise. It's very dialed in when you're driving the vehicle. And because of that, not only is it extremely fun to drive, but it just makes you comfortable behind the wheel. We have some pretty good braking feel as well. We have those 4-piston Brembo Porsche calipers up front, some 2 pistons rear, and of course we also have those cross-drilled rotors to provide that ventilation and dissipate heat where we can. This car makes every back road that you will ever get on an absolute delight to drive through because it's just so well balanced and it sounds so good, and it just has the perfect amount of power. 295 horsepower I feel like really is that perfect blend of power, because the Boxster S that I previously drove had a 3.2 liter flat six with about 250 horsepower. This brings it up by 0.2 liters in displacement, and we add another 45 horsepower, and it feels right. That extra power is totally well used and well utilized throughout the chassis of this car, and it definitely picks up and goes without issue. It's just amazing because this car has like no traction issues. You can drive it without the rear end ever having to step out on you or without ever having to fight for traction. You can just huck it into a corner, and this thing is literally on rails. The weight balance on it is so smooth. The steering rack on it provides so much feedback and directness. It's just very, very precision oriented, and I think that is one of the biggest selling points about the Porsche experience is you're not getting the fastest straight line car by any means, but it's just a very, very smooth drive, and I'm really, really enjoying this car. I think for the money in the used market that these Cayman S's go for, it's a lot of car. Now, one thing that I would like to touch on about this car is the interior, because coming from my last review, which was the 986 Boxster S, which had a pretty measly interior for the time being, and especially for a Porsche that's MSRP'd at around $60,000, this 987 really changes things quite a bit. The steering wheel feels much nicer in the hands. It's a little bit beefier as well, so you do have a really nice feeling when your hands are at the 9 and 3 position on the steering wheel. And on top of that, just the overall interior layout has been revised enough to where it just feels a lot more high quality, and it just feels much better. The center console layout feels much more modern. You have nicer materials laid out, good use of leather. There's still quite a bit of hard plastics throughout the interior of this vehicle for the time, but you know, again, you're not buying this car for the hard plastics in the interior. You're buying this car for the driving experience, the sound of that flat six, and ultimately the driving feel that this car provides. And at the end of the day, this is a driver's car. It's wonderful. Downshifting it is so satisfying whenever you're taking it through these back roads. You can just keep it in between third, fourth, maybe even fifth on some certain stretches. That short throw shifter feels really crispy and very, very precise. Overall, I think this is a great package of a car. Again, it's not the fastest thing. If you're looking for something that's straight line speed oriented, the Cayman is not going to be for you. And on paper, I think a lot of people tend to get dissuaded from many Porsches because they're not the most number heavy oriented cars. You know, they don't have the fastest 0 to 60 times. They don't have the largest horsepower or torque numbers, but what they do offer is a lightweight, fun to drive, balanced, and superb handling experience. And again, it's one of those things where you're not going to understand it until you drive it. The other thing is, you have to be in a situation or in a setting where you have back roads available to you to actually utilize this car for its purpose. This car totally shines and wakes up in these backside country roads on a track setting, or basically anywhere where there's elevation changes and plenty of turns to be had. Honestly, if I had to knock this vehicle for anything, there isn't a whole lot that I can truly say isn't good about this car. When you think of what the Cayman is designed to do, it completely succeeds in every single aspect. Honestly, my only gripe would maybe just be the interior. I feel like Porsche interiors are a little bit more on the basic side, and their use of materials aren't the most exceptional or lavish, but again, like, no one is buying these cars for that reason. So, you know, really, that's just nitpicking on this car, but everything else feels really precise and really, really good. I feel like if you don't have a whole lot of back roads accessible to you, or tracks that offer a very technical and diverse range of turns and elevation changes, the Cayman may not be the most enjoyable car because it doesn't have a ton of straight line speed. I mean, 295 horsepower and a curb weight under 3,000 pounds does not make this car a slouch, but then again, if you're in an area where there's tons of flat roads and just a lot of straights and not much to turn or play around with, the Cayman may not be the most enjoyable experience. And honestly, I think you really have to have the proper environment to have fun with this car. But aside from that, this car is awesome. You can cruise around with it. It gets a ton of awesome attention because it just has that exotic Porsche look to it, and it's just a blast, man. I would love to drive one of these on a track and really rip it and see how it does to the limit, but we'll save that for another day. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you can give me a thumbs up on this video, as well as subscribe to my channel down below if you have not done so already. I do tons of European sports car content. You can follow along my BMW M4 build, and tons of other reviews and cars are featured on this channel quite often. So stay tuned for more. Take it easy, guys. I'll catch you all in the next one.